Hello, and thank you for joining us on this podcast. You'll be listening in on a conversation between Brandon Poe and Dr. Jeff Magee about issues impacting the accounting profession, as well as strategies and solutions to help owners build better practices. Brandon Poe is the founder of Poe Group Advisors, a leading-edge practice brokerage firm, and is the author of Accountant's Flight Plan, Best Practices for Today's Firms, and On Your Own, How to Start Your Own CPA Firm. Jeff Magee is founder of Jeff Magee, Leadership Training and Technology, What You Need to Succeed. He's been called one of today's leading leadership and marketing strategists. He is an author of more than 20 books and publishes Performance 360 Magazine. Jeff has also been a regular content provider to the AICPA, Western CPE, Boomer Consulting, iShade, CPE Link, and many other Fortune 100 firms. To learn more about Brandon Poe, please visit www.poegroupadvisors.com. To learn more about Jeff Magee, please visit www.jeffreymagee.com.
Maybe give our listeners a little background on you. I first met you through your speaking with Western CPE. I always thought you were a really interesting, dynamic speaker. And
Thank you.
And I know you're not with Western CPE anymore, but wondered what you were up to and what you were doing, and just kind of get some background.
Perfect. What I had been engaged in doing for over 2 decades prior to Western CPE is exactly what I am still doing, and that is I have a kind of a boutique niche business and firm where I work with leaders, executive business owners, to basically go back in and provide them what they traditionally lack, which is we become very good technicians at what we do. CPAs as an example, you start off your entire industry and career as a technician in all of the training programs you get indoctrinated into and therefore conditioned to be receptive to gaining are technicians. Your tax, audit, accounting, fraud. If you do taxation work, then you know basically every October, November, December, you do your federal tax updates, additional classes, but all technicians. As you advance in your career, if you stay as a small business or a solo practitioner, then you pretty much still are, a technician at different levels, but that's what you do and that's your focus point. If at some point in there you transition away and you go into private industry, corporate America, if you go into other niche portfolios where you start having staffs and businesses in a larger firm and you become a executive in or a senior partner in or managing partner of, then a lot of your success is really not predicated on you being a great technician anymore. It's really going to be predicated on your ability to develop and hone your professional skills, management, leadership, communication, negotiation, arbitration, teaming, generational connectedness, all of those, the professional platform.
Right.
Well, most people spend a disproportionate amount of their time in that space, and that's the space I live in. That's what my college textbooks are, my trade books that you can buy at Barnes & Noble, my audios, my videos, our magazine, Professional Performance Magazine, our weekly easings that we do, all of that work. So where I have found my space to be is working with partners in firms, management teams, succession planning, leaders, partners retreats, firm, in-house, development programs on all the professional skill sets. And within that, one of the other areas I've really done even more of a deep dive on, Brandon, is we developed a year-long program that can go multiple years legitimately if the client sees value in it, and there's a reason for it. We have a year-long program where we come in and work with an organization, senior leadership team, 1 day a month, every month for a year. We call it the Leadership Academy of Excellence. And through that, we've identified all the professional skill sets that within a year we can hone, we can add, we can plus, we can grow, or in some cases people just don't have. So we present that to them to help them become significantly better leaders. So that's what I've been doing for 20-ish years. When I merged with Western CPE, part of the merger as a partner was to take over leadership and development of the company and grow it. And in the 8 months I was there, we significantly increased revenues, product deliverables to the marketplace, had phenomenal innovations. The partners, the 2 senior owners, and myself that was to have gotten equity, mapped out an 18-month game plan. And in 6 months, we had accomplished 90% of what the expectation would be to take almost 2 years to do.
Wow.
In that, we had some phenomenal growth.
That your perspective is interesting because I know you've worked with a lot of CPAs, I mean, for this profession, but you bring to the table a lot of experience in other industries. And I recently read a book called The Metasci Effect. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Have you heard of this book?
Yes.
You have. So it's a book by Franz Johansson, and it talks about how innovation occurs at the intersection of disciplines. And I think, that's something that, talking about technicians, accountants, even though they have a lot of clients in other industries, I don't think they're really, a lot of them aren't focused on the leadership issues that those clients face. And I think my perspective on CPA firms is if they can get away from that compliance and become better leaders, not only do they provide better leadership for their own teams, but their client leadership goes way up, and the opportunities that they get into with their clients.
Well, and that's I think exactly critical what you just said, and for your listeners to understand. And yes, I've done, for 20 years I've been working in the CPE space for attorneys, tax attorneys, EAs, CPAs, about 2,000 hours worth of CPE that I have out there in self-study, books, 1 hour to 16-hour programs, podcasts, etc. And the way the market has evolved today, you just hit it, and it's about relationship management. And that relationship management is both an internal driver and an external driver to an organization and to an individual. And so within that, it goes, I think, almost without saying, you have to be exceedingly proficient as a technician, because that's why clients come to you. How you get them is your professional skill sets, and how you're going to keep them and grow them over the long haul is your professional skill set. But the deliverable in between those 2 points is the technician, you or someone on your staff, or someone that is physically working for you or virtually outsourced that's helping you to take care of a client need. And within that, Brandon, what you just said is critical. Our ability to not just be the trusted advisor as a technician, but to become a trusted advisor, maybe more holistically, to be able to really understand the client's not just immediate needs, but understanding their past and their history, where they're coming from, can help to set their trajectory, which is one of the books I've coming out this fall, Trajectory Code. It can help us to set the trajectory of where the client's going in the future and help them to meet those needs. And as that trusted advisor, you are very uniquely positioned to know the dirty laundry on that client. It's like you've seen them naked. You're the doctor and you've seen them naked. There are no secrets. Yeah. You're a good technician. You've seen them naked. You know their spreadsheets. You know what's in between those spreadsheets.
Right.
You know what they're really doing. You know where the real money's coming from versus sometimes the stupid things our clients do.
Yeah.
And that's really going to be one of the intersections of future growth, is to be able to say, okay, I don't have to be the delivery of the other consultative needs that this client needs. I don't have to be the big, huge, big aid accounting rule that's imploded on itself because it didn't, follow its own tenets, and so now you're down to 4.5 or something. But those big boys have the ability to, meet a lot of client needs from consulting and marketing and employee development and et cetera. Well, the small firm and medium-sized firm, by having great partnerships, can do the same thing. I've got CPA firms that I work with, and we co-brand the product with their name, but we go in and we do a lot of that executive development and succession plan work and leadership skill development all the way down to the front entries level, people up to partners retreat. So the small partner firm that doesn't have the internal assets to be whole service to the customer can be whole service if they look at their business model differently.
Yeah, and I've been thinking just in terms of the technology. I'm a fairly small shop. I mean, we have a small team of about 4 people, but we can do things because we're so highly focused with, we don't broker anything but accounting firms. And that high focus combined with technology that's available to everyone, I have the same, and CPAs that are in practice have the same tools available that all the large firms have, essentially.
You got it.
So if everyone could, I think, stop trying to be everything to everybody, focus, and leverage those tools that are readily available, I think that a small CPA firm a small CPA firm owner can be almost as profitable as someone with a much larger scale in this day and age.
Yeah. And not only am I going to agree with that, I'm going to even maybe challenge the thought process of your listeners around what you just said. I think the small firm, the solo practitioner, the medium-sized firm can actually be significantly more profitable than large firms by doing what you just alluded to. Meaning, if I find the right group of partners, I can in essence outsource some of these deliverables because I'm trusted by this client and I know where they're going and I'm damn good at what I do. I can find other businesses that have leaders like me. So, for example, let's use my company, Jeffrey Magee. So if you're a small firm or a solo practitioner and your client is growing, I have a manufacturing client. They did $8 million a year and a half ago. They did $20 million this last year, and they're on a glide slope to easily do $30 million before this year's out, which is only basically 5-6 more months. And they're in line to easily be, because of the uniqueness they have, the patent they have. They have 3 basic competitors on the planet that all suck. The opportunities are just absolutely mind-boggling. This guy could easily be a $100 million company, whether he ever chooses to sell his firm or not. Well, his CPA firm is not doing him justice, so he's out looking for other CPA firms now. The reason a CPA firm is not doing justice is because they're not thinking future of where this business is going. They're playing past tense where this business has been, so they're not able to think big. Now, take it to the next step. So Jeffrey Magee comes in and I said, okay, I'm now the trusted advisor in this equation. The CPA firm is missed. They should have always been. They should have never lost it. But if the CPA firm was doing a good job, so let's use the same model now, let's go positive. If the CPA firm was doing a good job, they may not want to at all step into training and development. But if they knew the Jeffrey Magee out there and they came to me and said, Jeff, I've got this client, they're in growth mode, they need help with their senior leadership team, they need systems and tools from an HR development standpoint that will help them to lead and grow. Their team needs to be somehow brought together. Do you do anything in training, development, executive coaching, et cetera, turnkey, one-stop shop in that space, so that as we get them better aligned, then they can start adding more employees. They're at 30 now. They need to add, but they need to add smartly. The answer to all that would have been yes. Okay, then we would have said, okay, so what's the referral revenue stream for that? Well, in my industry, there are brokers, there are speakers bureaus, and they'll find me a client for about 20% of the fee. Mm-hmm. I have an employee. An employee goes out, all of the costs attached to that employee, their insurance, their benefits, their payroll, the overhead, et cetera. I know my cost factor is for every new customer one of my employees brings in, it's about 22 cents on the dollar. So a speakers bureau will charge me 20% to 30%. My employee is going to cost me 22%. So if I'm doing a program for a client, for sake of math, because I suck at math, that's what your CPAs are supposed to be good at. Let's say my client pays me $10,000 a month to do a product, and I have a relationship with a CPA firm that's going to bring me clients, and so that's they get paid 20%. That's $2,000 a month passive income that they're not having to be involved in the labor deliverable of that at all. Now, I will intellectually backbrief them 24/7 what's going on to help them to become better, and they can help me become better. Mm-hmm. But that's $24,000 a year to a small firm that was a way of saying it. Let's call it free money. $24,000 in free money a year to a small firm is a hell of a lot of money. Yeah. And you take that times 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 clients, there's $100,000. To a solo practitioner, CPA, or a small firm, $100,000 of free money is a lot more than $100,000. Because now you don't have yourself as a firm, all of your own labor issues with, in essence, someone who's standing up that business entity. So I would just challenge it. Some of these larger CPA firms, they're not nearly as profitable as they could be. But the partner running that arm, with all due respect, given what I've done for 30 years, the partner running that arm doesn't understand this space. And a lot of times they've hired people that have great academic pedigree. The truth be told, are mediocre at best in this space, because I'm going in continuously with a pooper scooper and cleaning up the crap of some of these firms. And my college textbooks are used. Here's even a better punchline. My college textbooks I've written are being used by some of these firms, and they're deliverable, that they're repackaging and charging a client as innovation when it's nothing, it's imitation. So you're onto something huge, Brandon. Huge.
Well, and I think the advantage too, and I think kind of one thing I want to talk about is what forces are impacting the accounting profession. And my thinking with regards to that question is, I think you're seeing more outsourcing. You're seeing better technology. The compliance work, the traditional CPA work, is going to be highly competitive. It's going to be low margin. CPAs, accountants really need to develop some of these higher level client services that they can help, their clients get past all that compliance stuff. What is your take on the profession, and what forces are shaping the profession going in the next 10, 15, 20 years, the accounting profession?
That is a great question. And again, I think sometimes the successful professional, so in this industry we're talking accountants, the successful professional has their own mastermind. And their own mastermind is made up of select people from around the planet, not just across the street. There are people that can always push you intellectually and professionally at where you are and what you're doing. So if the people you collaborate with, talk to, brainstorm with, that are part of your advisory group, your mastermind, your mentor group, whatever you call it, are equal to you or less, you're a freaking idiot because you're coasting. Ronald Reagan had a classic line using the academic scale of A to F. A-level people surround themselves with other A's. People that want to be an A-level person surround themselves with A's. But the reality in most organizations and politics, we have B-level people at best, and they continuously surround themselves with D-level people. That way they're always looked like to be, appear to be, seen as the genius. And so in the CPA firm, I think that's a part of the projection of the future is always view yourself as a firm, and it's not being disrespectful, but always view yourself as a firm that is basically a B plus A minus firm, meaning calibrate your brain that you maybe are an A, but let's back that down a little bit so that you always see yourself as a person in a firm that can be better, and therefore everyone you align yourself with should be better than you. So always raising your bar. If we look at that, then we can start to see the projections over the horizon of the future. I think a lot of times firms can't see the horizon in their local market or whatever emerging market they want to get into because they don't really have the right people around them in that brain trust to push them. So AICPA and the Maryland CPA group recently did a 2-year study called Horizons 2020. And if any of your listeners are not familiar with this report, they should get it because basically it involves survey analysis of, in essence, thousands of CPAs, EAs, tax attorneys, firms all over the globe. It involves, surveys of clients, emerging markets, present markets, and looked at migration patterns of why customers come and go, and et cetera. And I look at all that data, and I merge it up against surveys and research I've been doing for 20 years, and I see lots of parallels. So the future of the marketplace is going to be much more mobile, so firms have to be accessible to their clients 24/7. Doesn't mean the old rule book of you have to have a human being awake 24/7 accessible. But our clients, again, just look at you, and our listeners need to look at themselves in the mirror. Do you have a smartphone? Do you have, in essence, a computer? Do you have an iPad? Do you have a tablet? Do you have a whatever? And what sort of business operations do you do on it? That's question one. What sort of business operations do you not do on it and you're not willing to do on it? And what business operations are you not doing on it that you need to do and want to do, but you're not there yet? But you'll get yourself either ready, psyched up psychologically, or you'll get yourself in the near future by getting yourself skilled in the knowledge you know how to do it, or you'll get yourself there in the near future by getting the technology you don't have now the ability to do it, or you'll get yourself there in the future since technology is available. Those are your 5 windows and the only 5. So within that, I think the opportunities are, how do I take the parts of my business that I can and make them mobile? How do I take the parts of my business that my customers want to access me and make that part mobile so they can come and connect to me inbound? I need to figure out how to connect to them outbound. And how do I also look at them, all the systems? I mean, that's what McDonald's taught the world, was the systematic approach to business, which basically comes out of, Drucker, which comes out of Deming. That in essence, how do we create the systems to be more effective? Automation, systems, technology, systems, people having procedures and process, how to do their job, systems. So the future is going to be phenomenal. I think also the marketplace is going to be significantly more based upon collaborations and partnerships, which is what you and I were just talking about a minute ago, like with our Leadership Academy of Excellence product, partnered in with CPAs and CPA firms as a deliverable to their clients, to help their clients become bigger and better, because if they're bigger and better, that's going to be more accounting work for your firms. And if we can jointly help them become bigger and better, and I can get in there, show them ways to do even more business opportunities that they've missed, That creates more opportunities for the accountant in terms of audit, tax, finance, accounting, et cetera, the other services in their core service suite. So I think the future is going to be about collaborations and partnerships, because that already is the norm in a lot of other business market segmentation, and it's not been one of the ones in accounting.
Yeah.
Look, I have a lot of accountants who apply, small, solo practitioners, medium-sized. I was doing a retreat for AICPA where they had the 100 largest CPA firms, senior partners, and the HR specialists at a retreat in Florida a while back. And it was one of these crisis meetings, so it was pretty well attended by all of the managing and senior partners of the top 100 CPA firms in America in terms of manpower. So there were some phenomenal personalities in the room, and as you could expect, there was also some interesting egos. But what was interesting is one of those partners came up at break and said, Jeff, a lot of things you're talking about are well and fine. Succession planning, we all have one. Basically, none of us use it. And the reason is, truth be told, we're making so much money right now. We don't even know what the hell to do with our money. We're making so much. So in terms of really being, and my jaw was on the floor figuratively as this guy was talking. He goes, in terms of us really doing a phenomenal job for our clients, we don't have to. And this is one of the top, I'll just narrow it down, this is one of the top 5 CPA firms in America. And you say, so, I know we need to be doing this stuff, but we don't need to worry about it. Plus, I'm going to be retiring in the next couple of years, so, also, I really don't care. None of us care. All of us senior partners are going to be out here in the next couple of years, so we're all making so much money, it really doesn't matter. And, you had a couple of drinks, and maybe that was inducing his, his honesty. He thought he was doing a confessional with me, but it was mind-boggling. Now, I take that, and I put a lot of truth around it in case some of your listeners right now are freaking out and thinking, oh, my God, what a bunch of BS. No, there's fact behind it, because right now the Federal Reserve is shitting its pants. Let me be real blunt about this for your listeners. The top 87 banks in this nation are in a major crisis which has nothing to do with money, Brandon. The top 87 banks in this nation are in crisis because over 36% of their current leadership team are eligible to retire yesterday. And the banks are begging them to stay because they have done nothing to develop their talent pool, call that succession planning. And what makes it more horrific is there's an estimated another 30% of their senior management leadership team across the United States that are eligible to retire right now / over the next 7 years. So by the end of this decade, more than 60% of all the people in management leadership positions, from mid-level management to the CEO's office, of 87 of the 87 top banking groups are all eligible to retire. They have a major talent succession crisis going on in America in the banking industry. Now, they're probably going to work through that, and I'm doing a lot of behind-the-scenes work there, but my point that I'm going to, in a CPA firm, your CPA clients, family-owned businesses, we see it's huge there as well, statistically. If the number of people that could retire were to decide and say, you know what, I'm chucking it in, I'm retiring, and they did start retiring in the next decade less, that knowledge loss, that brain drain of practical experience and knowledge that's going to be handed over to a large percentage of young baby boomers that are frickin' clueless, and Generation X and Y that never really had to do some of these things that are incredibly innovative. We're going to have an enormous crisis. Right now, India has, in essence, an enormous knowledge gap in management and leadership that they have, in essence, acknowledged. Millions and millions and millions of people in management. They have these graduate degrees and pedigrees from Harvard and MIT, et cetera. They have no clue how to manage. They're begging for people with practical on how to manage and lead to come teach people. China has 23 million jobs right now that they cannot populate because they don't have people with the brain power to populate those jobs. America has over 1.5 technical, high-paying, six-figure jobs in America right now that cannot be populated because we have no one with the brain power to do those jobs. We already have an enormous knowledge crisis on this planet, but no one's even talking about it. So when you start to talk about opportunities for collaboration and growth in profit centers, and what used to be our profit centers are going to be under attack. Again, brilliant observation. The problem is a lot of our listeners have their head in the sand, are not willing to acknowledge it because they don't want to acknowledge it. And I believe one of the core reasons is they don't know how to acknowledge it. Well, how to acknowledge it is really not that hard. You and I are giving them the answers right now.
Mm-hmm. It's and I think a lot of the knowledge is sort of wasted. A lot of CPAs don't think to really kind of get involved with their clients at a higher level. They're just applying that compliance work. And I really think if firms don't change that compliance work is going to get lower and lower margin, and it has less value to the client. You got to kind of move up the value chain. And the only way you do that is with critical thinking skills and creativity and, getting face-to-face with your client, find out what they need. So that's what I see. I hadn't even, I know the demographics of just our current demographics are pretty interesting in that we have so many baby boomers and older people that are about to retire. It's hard to fathom what impacts that's going to have.
And you hit it right on the head, and that's where we are. I mean, it's just enormous. Now, the challenges to the market pool of good DNA are huge. Let me use an illustrate another example. Over 56% of all of the people that the United States Armed Services are trying to recruit to join the military, which traditionally they recruit between the ages of 16 and 29, primary market being 16 to 21, secondary being that 21 to 25, 6, 7, tertiary being that 25, 6, 7 up to 30. So call that basically Generation Y millennial. That's the primary market that the military, Army, National Guard, and all 54 states and territory, the Army, the Navy, the Marine, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, et cetera. They're all trying to recruit all those age groups, and primarily that primary one we just identified. 56% of who they used to be able to traditionally recruit, they can no longer recruit because they cannot be recruited in the military. Not that they're stupid. That's a whole other conversation. They can't recruit them because they have to get waivers to make exceptions to get them in.
Yeah.
These waivers today would stun a lot of your listeners. It used to be that rare would you have a high school kid with a criminal record. So that was an easy recruit for a military person. Today, 56% of high school kids cannot be admitted into the military because they have tattoos that crawl up their neck or down their arms so they're visible and you got to get a waiver. They have 1 or 2 DUIs. They have some sort of misdemeanor or felony charges. They don't have a high school degree, and so we're trying to get an exception because they have a GED, or they don't even have a freaking GED. So we've created a whole societal issue. So now, I use that statistic. Now, let's go back to an accounting firm. You can hire someone in your accounting firm, not as a college graduate. You can hire someone in your accounting firm that you want to be smart, to be able to have critical processing abilities to some degree that you just mentioned, and to have some sort of degree of work ethic. Mediocre would be nice today. It would be really good if you can find someone with a great work ethic. So you have, in essence, 40-ish% of the population pool, 44%, that don't have criminal records or some sort of a misfit problem. And every great employer is trying to recruit them, and you've got the military, the largest sales force on the world is our U.S. military recruiters trying to find them. So the population pool of good human talent, good human capital, is also going to become tighter. Not even to mention that a lot of the great people used to come from all over the planet of the United States because we were the city on the hill, as Reagan talked about, and everyone wanted to come here to go out and get education but then stay and work. Now India and China and those other countries realize that they lost their human capital for decades. They're stealing those people now. They come here to get education, but they're going back to their own countries to now live and work in it. Also, our worldwide competition is worldwide. It used to be our competition for the planet was all us trying to get there. Now it's them coming here as well. So again, even when you bring that out for conversation, that becomes enormous. Again, people need to start thinking about projection of the horizon of the future of the marketplace, what that means internally and externally, and that's what you brokered as a question 4 questions ago.
Yeah. I think the bottom line is there are a lot of very powerful forces that are going to be influencing not just the accounting profession, but just all professions, accounting in particular, because that's my focus. I can see a lot of changes that are going to come, and they're going to come really fast, and people are going to have to adapt probably a lot more faster than they're used to adapting to things.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. And again, the ability to ask questions is the door through which people are going to find future opportunities. Great leaders do not have answers. Great leaders do not have solutions. Great leaders have the ability to see the questions, ask the questions, know when there should be a question, and by posing the questions to the people around you, the people in your network, solutions then are revealed from which you can select the most viable solution for implementation, and that's why you're going to have, in essence, people following you. You'll have legions, in essence, of opportunities. You'll be perceived as successful, and then everyone thinks you're a great leader. But the sequential chain in that being a great leader is not you have to have the answers. You got to have the ability to ask the question.
So
Go ahead.
How do you develop, how do you take a person who's had a highly technical career, years of being in that sort of technical, just being a technician, how do you get them to change? How does someone like that make that shift and kind of basically change the way they think a little bit? I mean, that requires a pretty big personal change.
It does require a huge change, especially in the first part of your question, also as a part of the answer. That when someone has been onboarded to a profession, a career, where you were, in essence, trained to be the technician, and I am not about to advocate people let go of that, because that is a space that CPA will use that in broad category terms. That's what you represent. That's who you are. That's the cog. That's the link in the chain you serve. We're talking about how to enhance that, shine that, and make that more efficient through what we've been talking about now for several minutes.
Yeah.
But how you create that change is for people to recognize, wait a minute, to be effective, I must. And how you finish that sentence gives you huge clues. So when I talk about trajectory management, your trajectory is like a letter V for victory. At the base where those two lines come out of, that's always your starting point. I call that point A. The line that goes upward and to the left, we'll call that trajectory line B, as in boy. And the trajectory line that goes up to the right, we'll call that trajectory line C, Charlie, ABC. Now in psychology, A would represent an activating event, starting point. B represents our behaviors, the directions we tend to go. So it's activating events merged with our behaviors equals C, consequence and outcome. But I use this trajectory V model because what most typically happens is we start out at A, but we become, in essence, comfortable doing things our way, our own habits, our own SOPs, our emotions get involved and further tailor us to do things our way. So we go further and further into this trajectory B, which the reality for a lot of us is off track because the goal is C. Our destination is C. The reason for being in business is C. So we step it back and we create our vision and value statements, which we then use that data to direct our mission statements that says, line C, if we do all of these things, we'll serve our marketplace and we'll be successful. Line C. Clients come to us and they say they need things. Line C. Boom, we're off to the races, we're in business. Somewhere between leaving A en route to C, we get distracted and we start going off on tangents, track B. We start having our own pet project, track B. We forget what we're really all about, track B. We sell our integrity for a bigger buck, track B. We get way off on these B's, and one day we wake up at the end of that B, way up at the top of B, and we see we're way off track, and to get over to C is all that space cavity, and that's a way of change resistance and fighting. So if we go way back down to point A where the two lines first start, there's a period of space and time on that graph where both of those lines, one heading to B, one heading to C, are really close to each other, maybe even overlapping. That's what success is about down there. So if we can recognize anything we're doing, any decision, action, behavior, anyone I'm dealing with, sitting next to, etc., when we do it close to having left point A and moving up that line, if we were to extrapolate out, if I do this in 5 weeks, 5 years, hell, in 5 minutes from now, if I do this, say this, where will it take me? If it takes me towards trajectory B, my behavior, then that's not where I want to be. I can readjust and recalibrate instantly to get back over onto trajectory C for success. So how you retrain yourself, now back to your question, teaching this little tool of mine, is that we have to recognize that any time we're doing something, if we were just to stop and say, wait a second, Magee, if you do this in 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 months, where are you going to be? Because if it's where you want to be and where you need to be, thus it's in alignment with trajectory C, more power to you, keep going. But if by doing this, it's your own pet project, and at the end of the day, that's not what you're all about as a senior partner, or it's your pet project, but it's not why you got into this business, then stop doing those things. It's just like working from home. The reason most people work from home, they're not successful, which is a significant percentage of our planet, pharmaceutical reps, insurance, CPAs, insurance, consulting, a lot of people actually work from their home. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But most of those employees are not nearly successful because when you work from home, you don't go from your bedroom and living room and kitchen into your home-based office and put on your office space. You go in your office dressed like you're ready to lounge on the couch. Get dressed up. If you were going to an office building, you probably wouldn't be dressed the way you are. And you work from home, therefore you keep your door open or what have you. You get set your option where you're continually distracted to go do laundry, run an errand, take the dog out for a walk, etc. And truth be told, in an 8-hour day, you might only really work 45 minutes. That's the reality.
Yeah.
So you go back to that trajectory and say, okay, let me set my home-based office up in a way that I have zero to minimal distraction. Set my desk up in a way that, in essence, I'm not looking out the door into the rest of my house. Or shut your door. Or get dressed up. Or don't have your TV in your office. Or, purge everything in your office that's family-ish nature out of that office if you would legitimately not have that if you were in a brick-and-mortar building in your office. So you can adjust your trajectory, to adjust your psychology, to adjust out of just being a technician to be professionally more successful by looking at those. And I just gave you several answers to
Yeah.
how to do it.
I mean, you just got to catch it early. You got to be aware, and you got to. I think it's hard to be. I think it's hard to be accountable to oneself. I think when you're talking about the mastermind and surrounding yourself with top players, that's an accountability function to a large degree, and plus you have something to sort of, it's possible. Somebody else can do it. It's possible.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right. You hit it. I love it.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Let me just touch too on, you do a lot of HR work and team management. I kind of want to talk a little bit about that, just in terms of what you see. Let me just ask a real simple question. With your experience with CPA firms, what do you see is sort of the most common mistake people make with their teams, and what people should be doing instead?
Great question. We could go forever on that one. What I hear in working with firm leaders, firm owners, partners, members of the firm staff, people that are in a firm that like it or that are leaving it or that are turning over or that you're losing as part of your HR capital, all of that, I see a lot of very similar responses no matter which demographic I'm touching. And that is, if I want to attract and retain great talent, and again, if anyone wants to email me, my personal email address is drjeffspeaks@AOL.com. So it's drjeffspeaks@AOL.com. That's my personal email. You can always email me through my website at jeffrey.com, but that's vetted by some people on my team before sometimes I ever see email. But I did a research project with AICPA, with Western CPE, with Boomer Consulting, with BOI, the Maryland CPA Association, and others for years when I would work with the people in the audience on leadership and HR sorts of issues. I asked survey questions, and I compiled those answers and have a pseudo white paper of hundreds of ideas from people, we'll call these best practices, on where and how to find great new talent that you want to onboard and hire, as well as a list of hundreds of answers and best practices of ways to retain and keep great talent. So from your question, there's a lot of baseline that I've done to be able to legitimately speak to this, and that's what I want your listeners to understand where I'm going to come from. So the answers are very simple. Number one, it's about appreciation and value. Number one reason people are going to come to you or they're going to leave you is value and appreciation. If I feel valued and appreciated, then I'm going to stay. If I don't feel valued and appreciated, then I'm starting to mentally check out. Second answer that always comes up is basically meaningful work. Is what I'm doing meaningful? Meaning, is it meaningful work and appreciated by the client, internal or external? Is it meaningful work that if I take a step back, I see that it has, legitimate contribution to the planet? Is it meaningful work? Or am I just working on busy work, grunt work, crap jobs? I never get a chance to do anything fun or growing. So meaningful work. And the third answers are always about involvement. Am I involved in key meetings, key discussions, key activities? I have some great ideas, but no one of stature or firm has ever even said hello to me to find out if I've got some great ideas to help them. So those elements. If you take that and you match that up with the Society of HR Management, SHRM, Society of HR Management does, real-time surveys all the time to find out about, migration patterns of employees and executives and firms and target market. And they find that basically some of the top reasons employees leave is basically conflicts and confrontations and disagreements with coworkers and bosses. So we've got to make the environment one where, yes, we can have differences of views, but it's done in a healthy way. Second reason employees leave is they don't see any involvement and opportunities in the organization. That goes up with our number 3, the CPA firms. So if I don't see opportunities for involvement, promotion, work on great projects, advancement, then I'm not going to stay. It used to be the old rule book was you come to work with a large CPA firm, 30 years later you'd be a partner and have a corner office. People today are not willing to work, 10 years to get a corner office and be a partner. They want, in essence, equity opportunities or equity ownership or equity revenue sooner versus later. So we've got to put major performance bars in front of people. If they accomplish it, we've got to give them, in essence, the rewards for those performances. We can't make promises and not deliver because people are much more I won't say transparent, but they're much more, in essence, transitional in their behaviors today. They'll stay if there's a reason. They're going to leave if there's a reason.
Right.
So that's a deep, deep question with lots of different ways to start to answer it. Okay.
So, I see firms that have high turnover and I see firms that have low turnover. So, I think that just in terms of the practices that I've sold, that longevity of staff is usually a pretty good indicator of how successful the firm is. I think
that you just hit something enormous. Depending upon whose research model you want to listen to, what I've recognized as a theme of every one of the research models that's out there is somewhere around 80%. Some models have a higher number, others have a little bit of a lower, but it's usually about 80% of every merger and acquisition in America. 80% of every merger and acquisition on the planet implode within 5 to 10 years, and that's being very, very nice. And they implode not because they didn't integrate the systems effectively. They don't implode because, in that sense, it wasn't that someone cooked the books on one side and the other accountant was too stupid to figure it out, which I've personally seen it happen. They implode because of the talent collision in the human capital. Either once they merge, there's a talent gap that's not addressed, they don't blend the cultures and environment and the people capital effectively. Someone feels left out. They blend the firms, and actually the firm with the stupidest people gets put in charge. Those are the realities, but it's politically incorrect to say those things. And so good talent says, screw this, I'm leaving. I was at a CPA conference literally just in the last 48 hours and had a very sharp, very young accountant from Canada who was in the audience, and their firm based in the United States had just merged with another firm. And so instead of him being excited about the future, he was actually talking about he and a huge number of others were all discussing how to lead and how to position himself and looking at themselves a little bit differently because they never had to look through that lens of how do they remarket themselves. They were great talent right out of college, great internships, so they had, a waiting list of people begging them to come to the firm. Right. So they never really had to go out and shop and stuff, and so that was the conversation.
Yeah.
So then I said, well, why would you guys be leaving? And it was the answer to exactly the question we've been discussing, that the firms were being merged, and basically the merger was going to be running off a lot of the great talent. They were merging it, so on a balance sheet things looked great. Some people were going to make an enormous amount of money. And again, the client is the one that's going to get screwed at the end of the day because you're going to have mediocre people taking care of them.
Yeah.
But the senior leadership would be in denial of everything I just said because they are looking at it through the lens of simply a balance sheet. Human capital is on the balance sheet. The human capital is not the balance sheet. You got to get to know your people differently.
Yeah, it's not black and white, and I think a lot of times people just don't focus on the people the way they should. That's really the bottom line is they're not focusing on it. And we actually, when we sell a practice or work with a merger, we do a lot of coaching with the buyer and seller on how to integrate the people. That's essentially step one. You have to do that. And it has to be a good cultural fit from the get-go.
Now, let's go back to something you just said, Brandon. So we do a lot of work, some firms do a lot of work on the front side to merge, and that's exactly right. Where I come in, the huge hole that I've noticed is missing, though, which is where my Leadership Academy of Excellence product fits, niche, is what's the ongoing ways you sustain that continuity and that growth and that merger. And that's where a lot of times, no, I'm not going to tell you, that is exactly what everyone in America misses. Most leadership and development programs in America fail for 3 reasons. 3 reasons. Truth be told, the delivery system is flawed. Second, the delivery person's resume is flawed. Truth be told, they should never be allowed to open their mouth in public, much less in front of a client or audience. And then the third reason they fail is there is no intermediate or long term. Forget there's no intermediate or long-term reinforcement, that's why my LAE product has had phenomenal results. And anyone who wants to know about it, I'd be more than happy to put you. I mean, one of my clients is CEO of a $3 billion financial organization. He himself is a CPA, and I have no problem opening up my book to anyone who wants to be a real customer of mine, saying, here are the people you can call them and talk to them right now. I'll do an introduction, step out of the way, and you guys go for it. But what they're going to say, the reason it had success is what you just did. It's not just the front door and the initial onboarding and blending in the teams, but it's the continuity and the sustainment of the long term. Yeah. And what CPAs have got to get their mind wrapped around is you've already bought into long-term technician development. You guys have already bought into long-term technician educational and training and development. But what you've not bought into is long-term development of your human capital skills.
Yeah.
And that's all you have to do. You're already doing it. You're just now going to add another piece to the pie. And imagine if your CTE was predicated on 50% of your CTE hours every year or every 2 years had to be technician, but the other 50% had to be professional skills. It'd radically change everything on the table.
I wish the AICPA would revisit that, because I think you're exactly right. It takes a consistent, ongoing effort. I'm a firm believer in those types of, it's essentially coaching. I'm a firm believer in that. I think it's powerfully helpful for people, and they can go places they never thought were possible over time. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight for sure, but so that's great. I appreciate you sharing that. Well, I don't have any more really questions right now, Jeff. Do you have any questions for me, or?
No, I think we're great. This is a great program. I appreciate the service you're bringing to people, so that's fantastic.
Well, thank you for your time.
We'd like to thank you for listening in on this podcast. If you would like to contact Jeff and his team about what you need to succeed, you can email him at drjeffspeaks@aol.com or contact by phone at 406-548-5385. His website is located at www.jeffreymagee.com. If you would like to contact Brandon Poe and his team about buying or selling a practice, you can email him at bpoe@PoeGroupAdvisors.com or contact by phone at 888-246-0974. His website is located at www.PoeGroupAdvisors.com.